Today is Tuesday. Let's try this again. Good morning. Today is Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022. It's a day of the twos. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. All right. Well, we will call the Senate Tax Committee to order. Members, today we're going to talk about several bills regarding elimination, removal, or lowering taxation on Social Security benefits. To start with, I'm going to pass the gavel to Senator Weber, who's going to chair the committee, and I will be presenting the first bill.
Thank you, Chair Nelson. We will proceed to Senate File 2637, Unlimited Social Security Subtraction, and you may proceed when you're ready.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Yes, I would like to move Senate File 2637, and so members know all of our bills today will be laid over. Members, this bill is something that is not new to members of the Tax Committee, nor is it new to Minnesotans. I'll give you a little bit of background, and I'll tell you what the bill does. Social Security benefits are those benefits, obviously, that workers have paid for throughout their paychecks as they were, Social Security taxes were deducted from those paychecks. Social Security benefits are sometimes taxed in some states. Actually, 37 states do not tax Social Security benefits at all. Now, oftentimes, Social Security is a main source of income for retirees. All of our retirees are living on fixed income. And for years, many of us have tried to remove the taxation on those Social Security benefits that Minnesotans purchased. This time of massive budget surplus, likely, well, we know at least $7.7 billion, perhaps more as our new budget forecast comes out, does provide us with the opportunity to finally follow the other 37 states, to be the 38th state, actually, that would eliminate the taxation on those Social Security benefits. As I said, 37 other states do not tax them at all. Current law, a taxpayer must subtract a portion of their Social Security income when calculating their Minnesota taxable income. But as I said, 37 other states do not tax that at all. I do not believe we should be taxing retirees either, especially at a time when on the revenue side we have a large surplus. But when you think about those Social Security retirees, they are faced with massive inflation. We are seeing historic inflation, 40-year high inflation, whether it be energy, 30% increase, food is up dramatically, heating costs are up dramatically, and our Minnesotans living on fixed incomes are left with this often over 7% inflation right now. This is one thing we can do, members, that will help them preserve some of those Social Security benefits, which I said they already purchased. And I will share a little bit of the fiscal note, which I believe you have in your packets as well. It's 539 million for fiscal year 23, 571 for 2024, and 613 for 2025. It is a significant revenue to our state, but I submit to you that these benefits were purchased by the retirees, and it is a significant part of their retirement. So, members, I'd also like to give our we have, because it's been such a popular bill, because so many Minnesotans are interested in removing this, I would say, double taxation on the benefits for which they already purchased, many senators have written similar bills as well. And I actually want to acknowledge them today, and if they would like to come and offer some comments, they're certainly most welcome. Senator Limmer, I believe, is in the room and has offered a similar bill. I maybe don't see him here. There he is, right behind me. And if you want to come make some comments, Senator Limmer, you are most welcome to do so.
Welcome, Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Despite the weather and the long trip from Maple Grove on a blizzard day, this is well worth it to come here and speak on behalf of our senior citizens and the burden they have to pay in taxes on their Social Security check. Many of you may not know that the increase in Social Security benefits does not climb with inflation. Historically, it's a very small percentage compared to the inflationary rate, and that's happened for many, many years. And that decision, of course, is made by the federal government, not the state government. However, it's vitally important during this time of surplus that our state is experiencing, a record $7.7 billion of surplus money and climbing. This is a perfect time to consider changes to Minnesota's tax system, least of all the Social Security income tax that I believe is an unnecessary burden on our senior citizens and needs to be repealed once and for all. Roughly speaking, the income in a biennium is roughly 2% of our entire state budget that comes out of Social Security income tax. Other states, as Senator Nelson has said, there's 37? 37 states don't rely on taxing their senior citizens for income to run their state. Many of those states don't even collect income tax at all from an individual or from a corporation. So Minnesota really has shown and is has quite the expertise of shaking every bush for every income source they possibly can find in the state of Minnesota. Back in 1986, I ran unsuccessfully for the state Senate. I later was successful in a state House race, but the budget of this state in 1986 was $11 billion. It's now in excess of $50 billion. You need to keep that in context with this discussion. Do we really need to tip the senior citizen upside down and shake the pennies out of his pocket to keep this state growing, the state budget growing at such an exorbitant rate? I suggest no. And if we're going to make any changes in reform of our tax system, let it begin with repealing the income tax on Social Security checks.
Thank you, Senator
Senator
Limmer. Senator Nelson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to acknowledge that Senator Bach, I believe, has also a full elimination bill. And if the chair would permit, I'd ask Senator Bach if he wanted to make any comments.
Senator Bach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Senator Nelson. I think, am I muted or not?
You're good. Is your microphone?
Okay. Well, thanks, Senator Nelson, for the opportunity to say something about this. This issue's been around the tax committee a long, long time, and in all these years we've talked about it, we've just never quite had the resources to be able to do it. And if we can't do it now with a surplus of $7.7 billion, I can just tell you, shame on us. And in talking to leadership, I'm pretty certain this is going to pass the Senate. The only way this doesn't happen is if Governor Walz gets in the way. That is the only way this is not going to happen. And so I look forward to working on this with you, Senator Nelson. I just want to say there are, if people when they retire want to leave Minnesota, our taxes shouldn't be the reason that forces them to leave. Leave because it's too cold, which I could understand, too snowy. Leave because maybe you've got family and grandchildren now in another state. But the overriding consideration shouldn't be our tax structure. And it's more than just the revenue we lose when people relocate, because oftentimes they move for 6 months and a day, just so that they can meet the threshold of not having to pay a Minnesota income tax on their Social Security. Because many of them made their money in this state, they maybe have what will be vacation homes in the state, and they want to come back here for part of the year. So often it's just part of the year they leave. So the Department of Revenue has kept a close eye on these, for lack of a better word, snowbirds, to make sure that they are actually spending 6 months in a day outside the state. And what that leads to is, and I can just speak very personally from earlier this month, I was invited to Nevada. My brother-in-law and his wife just bought a winter home there. They're not planning on spending 6 months there, but they're gonna probably spend 4. But, so I was there for her birthday party earlier this month. And I asked my brother-in-law, I said, geez, do you plan on moving here for more than 4 months, maybe 6 months and a day? And he said, that's what my financial manager told me to do. He said, I would be foolish to stay in Minnesota for less than 6 months, or for more than 6 months and a day. And then at the birthday party, some other people showed up, and interestingly, I got to visiting with some people, and 2 of the couples there had just moved. They were telling me how they just got done getting their license plates in Nevada, and there's no taxes in Nevada on their retirement income. Their property taxes are cheaper. They were going down this list of all the reasons that they now moved from up in Senator Rude's district to Nevada. And what we lose with that, members, is I think something we all got to think about is because the Department of Revenue is very aggressive on keeping an eye on these people, they are advised by their financial planners to not sit on any kind of boards, don't get on the church council, don't get on any volunteer boards, don't make any charitable contributions in Minnesota, certainly don't buy a fishing license in Minnesota, a resident one. There's a whole list of things. Don't use an accountant to do your taxes. I don't care if you've used them for 40 years, find a new one in the state that you live in. Don't use an attorney in Minnesota. There's a long list of things that the Department of Revenue looks at to establish residency. And when people move all those other things and they quit volunteering back in our community, we lose. We lose a lot. These kind of people make significant contributions to our communities, and so there's more than just a revenue loss to the state when these people decide to relocate. I'd like, people to think about that some. It just seems like with all the money we have right now, if there ever was a time to do it, this is it. So, and I'll say it again. I believe this will pass the Senate. And the only reason it will not happen is if Governor Walz gets in the way. My House author is the vice chair of the tax committee in the House. Just talked to him this morning. I said, are you going to get a hearing? He said, you bet I'm going to get a hearing. Well, he wanted to buy me dinner. I said, well, I'm not going to bet you dinner on it. But just like the House, they'd probably give him a dang hearing just so they could stick me for dinner somewhere. But I think there's a lot of interest, and frankly, in both caucuses on this subject, because we all know seniors who are making these kind of decisions. And so Senator Nelson, thanks for bringing this forward. I wanted to thank Senator Gazelka for being the second author on it. I know him and I have talked about it. It's very, very important to him. I know it's important to Senator Miller, the majority leader in the Senate, and look forward to the conversation about it as we move forward, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Bach. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Bach. It is replete. This is the issue that I hear the most about in my district, particularly from our seniors. And my colleagues have rightly described the unintended consequences of Minnesota taxing these Social Security benefits. I also want to acknowledge that Senator Howe also has a full exemption bill. In fact, this might be one of the most popular bills in the Senate as far as the number of clone bills. And rightfully so. This is what Minnesotans want. And Senator Howe will have comments in a little bit if he wants to add, as he has a separate bill as well. But members, I would just submit to you that this is the time. We will lay this bill over. You have not heard the end of this. This will be coming to the Senate floor, and we expect a swift passage, a bipartisan passage. And then it will be up to, and I hope that Senator Bach, you are right about that hearing in the House, and then it will be up to the governor. And his call, if he should, again, listen carefully to Minnesotans who are so concerned about their Social Security benefits, which they purchased. I just want you to think about that. They already purchased those benefits, and yet Minnesota is taxing them. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would ask that we lay over the bill.
We do have other testifiers
Oh.
on the list here, people who have wished to speak to the bill. And at this point, Barry Bisbee, are you online or in the room?
No, I'm online. I'm sitting in a parking lot in Cannon Falls.
Oh, okay, very good. Mr. Bisbee, please identify yourself and you may proceed.
Thank you so much. This is so important to me. I tried to drive through the Minnesota blizzard to get up there to make this testimony, but the weather prohibited it, so I'm stuck right here, and I'm glad I still have this opportunity. I really want to thank you, Chairman, and I want to thank Senator Nelson for this opportunity. But I also want to thank everybody that represents me and the citizens of this great state of Minnesota. Social Security income tax in Minnesota. The government of Minnesota needs to remove just one word, tax. With a $7.7 billion revenue surplus, this put up a flag to me to say this is the correct time to remove Minnesota tax on Social Security. Now, I go out and I look at definitions of what the government calls OASDI, excuse me, old age retirement, social survivors, disability insurance, popularly referred to as Social Security, provides a monthly benefit to eligible workers and family members when the workers elect to start receiving retire benefits or when a worker dies or becomes disabled. A worker's lifetime covered earnings is largely determined the amount of the benefit they received. Now, in Webster Dictionary, when I looked up these definitions for social and security, social is of or related to human society, the interaction of individuals and the group, or the welfare of human beings as members of our society. Security was interesting in Webster Dictionary. It said freedom from danger, freedom from fear or anxiety, but it also said freedom from the prospect of the loss of your income. Minnesota, I'm going to go with one other state because I believe West Virginia is passing the no tax on Social Security this year. So that really makes it 38 states. Minnesota is one of 12 states that still taxes Social Security income. When 38 states can figure out a way not to tax Social Security income, Minnesota can figure this out also. In fact, Minnesota government can afford to stop this tax on their citizens. With inflation going up and up and up and up, this token tax that the state of Minnesota takes from its citizens could help buy food on their table, help pay for their energy bills, put gas in their cars. In other words, use income for day-to-day items to live on. The citizens will use this income as they need it, and it will go directly back into the Minnesota economy. They've already had their income deducted as a tax from their paycheck year after year as they worked. Mine was first deducted in 1968 when I worked at Camp Chickasaw and I was a dishwasher. Why tax more from the citizens who already worked so hard for this money? The Minnesota government can afford not to tax Social Security, $7.7 billion in surplus. The Minnesota government can figure out how to budget without taxing people who need their Social Security income monthly. You know, I know many retired people, I can name them, who can afford to leave Minnesota and go to one of these other 38 states that does not tax Social Security during the winter months. I think you call it the snowbirds. These states do not tax that income. Most who leave Minnesota do it just to claim the residency in that state so they will not be taxed under Social Security income. You know what? These states love us from Minnesota. Man, they welcome us with open arms because we're revenue to them. Minnesota's losing that revenue. Please leave Minnesota so they do not have, these people do not leave Minnesota to pay taxes on their retirement income. If you do the numbers, Minnesota is losing more tax revenue to having people leaving the state. But you know, these aren't the people who I'm talking about that will benefit the most from no Social Security state tax. I'm talking about the people who cannot afford to get up and move to another state as they don't have the income to do it. This Social Security tax elimination will not give them that little bit of extra income to leave the state for 6 months, but it may help them buy maybe 6 months worth of milk and bread for their table. You know, a few phrases ago I used do the numbers. So for me personally, as I've been moving into my retirement, my income is going down. Shocked at how much I have to rebudget. I had to sit down and do the numbers to see what I need to do in order to survive with my loss of income. I know I can't buy a vineyard. And you know what? I really wanted that new fishing boat, but I can't buy it because I have a loss of income. I have to make the adjustments to a way I can live day to day, meaning I have to start learning to go without. A $7.7 billion surplus in the Minnesota budget in the middle of a pandemic, the Great Resignation, the loss of working class just tells me Minnesota government needs to redo their numbers. My suggestion is to become the 39th state and stop taxing Social Security income. Minnesota government can survive. Now, I went out and I had to do all my research, and I went to ssa.gov/policy/fact sheet, blah, 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 stats, Minnesota. And it showed me the number of Minnesota citizens who are receiving Social Security. Now, I know that these numbers may not be up to date that I saw, but they did show me that there are many people in your districts that you would be helping and looking out for. The people. I wrote a letter to the editors in Rochester Post-Bulletin. A neighbor knocked on my door and told me he read the letter, which I thought was surprising because I thought that print media was not being read, but this person read the letter, along with 6 other people that told me, thank you for writing that letter. But this person that knocked on my door, he told me that his mom lives off her Social Security income and nothing else. Her husband was a public sector employee, and he happened to check that box that said he wanted the money now, but at death, the surviving spouse would not get it. Just think about that. She's living off her Social Security and nothing else. This is the one thing that I believe all parties, whether you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're independent, whatever you are, can agree on. And you can reach across party lines
Thank you, Mr.
and
Bisbee.
agree that $7.7 billion surplus is too much. Spending is just that, spending. Make the tax cut, make sense for the citizens who depends on this money. Make sure that you become the 39th state. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bisbee. Next, we go to Mary Jo Maleka. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name. Please identify yourself for the record, and you may proceed.
That's okay, Senator. Everyone mispronounces my name. Um, even though it's a good Southern Minnesota name. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Mary Jo Maleka. I live in New Brighton, and I'm a leader with Isaiah. My husband and I are retired. We were fortunate enough to both have good jobs with good salaries, and we consistently contributed to our 401ks. We own our home, put both of our children through college, and we live comfortably. Collecting taxes from people in my economic situation or better is one of the ways we are able to fund the programs and services that keep Minnesota a good place to live. Under the current tax laws, our lowest income seniors don't pay any income taxes on their Social Security income. So exempting all Social Security income will give the biggest tax cuts to higher income seniors. I certainly do not need a tax cut. I can well afford to pay taxes, and I expect to pay taxes. Frankly, I don't understand why we would give tax cuts to people who do not need them, when the consequence would be to put programs that seniors do need and count on in danger, and also threaten things our children and grandchildren need, like quality education and childcare. The fiscal note estimates that the cost of this bill would be over $1.7 billion over the next 3 years. One of the reasons given by members of the legislature for not passing bills that would benefit our families and our underserved brothers and sisters is that we cannot afford it. This unnecessary tax cut will only make that situation worse. I think it's an extremely bad idea to completely eliminate the income tax on Social Security payments for retired people. In Minnesota, we care for each other. This includes paying our fair share so that our less fortunate brothers and sisters can have what they need. I encourage you to vote against this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maleka. Next, we will turn to Nan Madden. Please identify yourself for the record, and you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Nan Madden. I am Director of the Minnesota Budget Project. I appreciate the opportunity to testify today, and my remarks apply to both this bill, Senate File 2637, as well as Senate File 2805. These bills would make it harder to ensure that all Minnesota seniors are secure and thriving in their communities, that our kids and young people get off to a strong start in life, and that families and communities are strong. As you've heard, Minnesota already takes a responsible and targeted approach to taxation of Social Security benefits. About 2/3 of Social Security income going to Minnesota residents is already exempt from income taxes, and that's following the federal law exemptions as well as Minnesota's additional Social Security tax subtraction, which is focused on middle-income seniors. We are concerned about the high cost of this bill, more than $1 billion per biennium, and that cost would grow in future years. Minnesota is fortunate this year to have large projected surpluses, but those dollars won't last forever, and this large cost could have harmful future consequences. These bills would reduce state revenues at the time that the number of seniors needing services is growing, whether those services be community-based services that allow them to stay in their homes, transit, or high-quality nursing home care. The second concern is who benefits from the tax cuts. The lowest income seniors would see little to no benefit from full Social Security Social Security exemption, but they would feel the greatest harm from a failure to invest in services today and from potential cuts in services in the future. Instead, it's the highest income seniors who are more likely to benefit from these bills and would see the largest tax cuts. The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy estimates that more than half of the total tax cuts from exempting all Social Security income would go to households with incomes above $134,000. So that's the top 20% of the income distribution in our state. These high-income households would receive annual tax cuts of $1,000 or more simply because of their age and because Social Security is one of their sources of income. It's not necessary to provide a tax cut for the highest income Minnesotans to address the challenges that modest income seniors are facing. Some have pointed out that other states don't tax this income, but the cost of senior tax breaks provided by states is expected to more than double by 2030 as the number of seniors grow. And I believe those other states are going to be facing some serious financial problems down the road, which will make it difficult to provide the services that seniors and others count on. I think we all recognize the contributions Minnesota seniors make to our state and recognize the struggles that some Minnesota seniors face. Rather than provide large tax cuts to high-income seniors, I encourage you to continue to take a targeted approach to Social Security taxation that also focuses on sustainably funding the public services that Minnesota seniors and other Minnesotans count on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Madden. Next, we will turn to Mary Jo George. Please identify yourself for the record, and you may proceed.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. Madam Chair and members of the committee, my name is Mary Jo George, and I'm the Associate State Director of Advocacy with AARP Minnesota. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the bills before you designed to lower Social Security taxes. As we have testified in the past, AARP continues to advocate for a balanced approach that provides Social Security tax relief for low and middle income retirees. We have appreciated past legislative actions that has provided targeted relief to seniors up to the new income thresholds for taxing Social Security. Before these changes, the thresholds had not been adjusted since 1984, meaning more and more retirees were being taxed on their Social Security benefits. Today, we're here in support of Senator Rest's bill, Senate File 3135, which more than doubles the tax subtraction to $11,000 for married couples and almost $9,000 for single filers. It also increases the income limits to $83,000 and $65,000 respectively. However, this year, we are urging lawmakers to consider an alternative approach and go a step further by exempting all Social Security benefits from taxation for middle-income retirees. We believe this is consistent with Congress' intent when they began taxing Social Security benefits in 1984 and provided full tax exemptions for certain incomes. Under this approach, middle-income retirees would pay no taxes either up to the income thresholds that we've set in law today, and that's about $78,000 for married couples and $61,000 for single filers, or to another agreed-upon income limit. The reduced subtraction amounts could still continue for higher income earners. Several states use this approach, including Vermont, which applies a total exemption, for example, for married couples earning less than $60,000, and Kansas, which exempts benefits for those earning less than $75,000. While this is a different approach, we not only think it's fair, but it's much simpler for Minnesota seniors to understand and could go a long way in helping them middle-income retirees who are struggling on a fixed budget, especially as the price of consumer goods continue to rise, as many of the senators have mentioned. Unfortunately, many of our members are unaware that they are exempted today from taxes or are given any tax relief in law today. So we think this straightforward approach could help with that. And while we certainly recognize a total phase out of Social Security taxes may be appealing, as envisioned in many of these bills, it also would be very costly, and we know that that has been mentioned. But our concern with full repeal is that given the aging demographics and other challenges we face, especially the dire workforce shortage in long-term care that is threatening the health and safety of our vulnerable seniors, A full repeal may not leave us with the significant funds to fund the programs that seniors need. So in conclusion, providing relief to middle income retirees is consistent with our policy that taxes should be equitable, consider people's abilities to pay, and produce revenue sufficient to sustain essential programs for seniors and their families, as well as all Minnesotans in need. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. George. Next, we will turn to Patrick Gannon. Mr. Gannon, please introduce yourself, and you may proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Senator Nelson, committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I have just a few brief points to make. I am speaking today in opposition to Senate File 2637 regarding the unlimited Social Security subtraction permission. I'm concerned about the bill. The bill purports to give tax relief, but not all Minnesotans need relief from this specific tax. This bill gives little benefit to lower income seniors or lower income families because of the exemption already in place. This bill mainly gives relief to people with higher incomes. I had a conversation with a relative about Social Security. He told me that he uses his monthly Social Security check to pay the monthly lease payment on his Lexus. I'm not suggesting that that is a bad thing, but I am suggesting that this individual and others with a healthy financial situation do not need the unlimited Social Security subtraction permission proposed in Senate File 2637. He can pay his taxes on Social Security. The Department of Revenue, as was mentioned in its February 18th fiscal note of Senate File 2637, projected that tax revenue loss of $539 million has been noted in fiscal year 2023 and higher losses in subsequent years. To support this bill, to use funds from the current surplus, one-time funds, that leaves us with a $539 million ongoing reduction of tax revenues. Well, it leaves me with the question, how does that work better for all Minnesotans long-term? Thank you again for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you today.
Thank you, Mr. Gannon. And next we turn to Patricia Mann. Ms. Mann, please introduce yourself for the record, and then you may proceed.
Thank you. My name is Patricia Mann, and I am speaking to you today from Rochester, and I appreciate not having to drive up here in this weather. And so I want to thank Senator Nelson, who's my senator, and the other committee members for this opportunity. I am concerned about the proposal to eliminate the state tax on Social Security income. I have always valued our progressive tax system where we are taxed according to our income. As you can see, I am a senior citizen and I support being taxed on my income, not my age. Because of my income level, I and most seniors would receive much benefit from this proposal. Most of the benefit would go to couples with higher incomes. Eliminating this tax could reduce state revenue and could result in less state support for community programs that help our seniors. There is also the possibility of increased property taxes as a result of reduced state financial support to local communities. Senator Nelson and I have talked previously about some other options to help seniors. For example, a more realistic tax credit for long-term care insurance. I hope committee members will consider carefully the long-term consequences of this proposed legislation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mann. And finally, we have in the chambers Mr. James Nicolai, who would like to speak to the, pardon? You please come to the table up there next to Senator Nelson. Please identify yourself for the record, and you may proceed when you're ready. Sure.
Thank you, Chair Nelson.
and members of the committee. My name is James Nicolai. I'm a resident of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I managed to get here this morning despite the snow. I'm a member of a group called Elders for Infants. We're a small, informal group of retired professionals who have worked in Minnesota over the past 40-plus years in fields of childcare, public health, parent education, mental health, academia, philanthropy, and government. Our purpose is to make visible the needs of infants and toddlers beginning before birth and especially up to age 3. We oppose lowering taxes because the needs of this group are not being met and have not been met over the years. We acknowledge that public resources and policies often benefit those who are most able to speak for themselves. Babies and their parents have the least capacity to advocate for what they need. As elders in the village, we're compelled to shine a light on this situation. According to 2021 publication by Elizabeth Davis, Department of Applied Economics, and Aaron Sojourner, Carlson School at the University of Minnesota, every year the public invests $24,100 more per person in older Americans, 65 and up, than it does for the youngest Americans. The authors cite the scientific consensus that underscores the critical impact of early childhood development and lifelong health in promoting education, social, and economic outcomes. We offer 3 suggestions and recommendations in relation to the proposed bill. We need to rebalance investments toward children first, beginning before birth, by supporting them and those who parent and care for them. Make taxation fair. A tax break for middle and upper income seniors means a loss of revenues, which exacerbates the difficulty in funding programs that help families with meeting basic needs, and shifts taxes to the shoulders of younger Minnesotans, and that doesn't seem fair to us. Long-term investments in Minnesota's future require patient policies and consistent funding. From conception through the first 1,000 days is a period of intense and rapid development that is crucial for all later development. We expect most from young families when they have the least. We believe the time to rebalance Minnesota's public investments toward children, beginning with for babies first, is now. Rebalancing would increase fairness in the distribution of government resources and improve the odds of successful outcomes long term. Our choices today will have profound consequences for Minnesota's future. We must choose wisely. And I have a couple of things that might be useful for you. This is a handout from the report that I quoted. And would answer any questions if you have.
Okay, very good. Any questions, members? I don't see any, Mr. Nicolai. Thank you much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands up, or I see no one else in the room that wishes to testify to this bill. Senator Fox? No.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm sitting here thinking about one of the principles of a revenue system is consistency. And so I've been thinking about, clearly, I heard the word 401K mentioned. When I put money into my 401K, you don't pay taxes on it when you put that in. That's tax exempt when you put it in. You pay the taxes when you take it out. That's fair. State and federal government both treat it the same way. But the inherent problem with the inconsistency on Social Security is, and I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but I guess I paid my first Social Security taxes in 1971, but you pay your taxes on the portion of Social Security that's deducted from your paycheck. So they take your gross pay, you pay taxes on the Social Security, and then it's deducted from your check, off your net pay. So you paid taxes on your portion of the Social Security money that's been paid into the trust fund. That's the inherent problem, because now you didn't pay taxes on the employer's portion, but you paid on your portion. Now, when you go to retire, you pay taxes again on the money that you already paid taxes on when it was taken off of your check. That's kind of an inherent problem with this. You know, we don't treat Roth IRAs that way, and a lot of people have Roth IRAs. You know, you pay the taxes just like you do on Social Security. You pay your taxes, and then you put the money into your Roth IRA. We don't tell you have to pay taxes again on it when you take it out of your Roth IRA. So I just think there's some inconsistencies in the way Social Security is taxed. And I'd just like people to think about that some, because consistency is very, very important in this committee. And I do think there's kind of some inherent problems. And one last thing, Mr. Chairman, is, you know, we don't score things dynamically here, right? So, and for anybody watching, what that means is we only look at the impacts of the bill. We don't look at other impacts that happen. I can just tell you, and I mentioned the Nevada example, if someone, and Minnesota has relatively high income taxes, very progressive system. Most states pay less. So if retirees move to another state, they you know, one of the 37 or 38, they don't pay taxes on their Social Security, but they also pay fewer taxes on their retirement income. In some states, no taxes on their retirement income. So when somebody moves, when they retire, you lose not only what's on the fiscal note here on the taxes on their Social Security, you lose the taxes on all of their retirement income. And I think if we were to dynamically score that, I'm sure that the cost of this bill comes down significantly when you factor in all the other revenue that's lost by those individuals when they leave the state. Just something I think for us all to consider, because it looks like it costs a lot, but it actually, it might not be to the extent that is on the fiscal note.
Thank you, Senator Bach. And I see no other hands raised, so the acting chair is going to take his prerogative to weigh in on this particular issue. I serve a border district. I have approximately 132 miles of shared border with South Dakota and Iowa. Both states do not tax Social Security benefits. We oftentimes think of our retirees when we lose them of going to farther away, warmer climes or whatever. But let me tell you something. The number of moving trucks that goes just across the state line, you know, my senior citizens can easily move to South Dakota or Iowa in a short 20-minute drive and still maintain contact with family that is back in their home area, and actually receive not only on their Social Security benefits, but quite frankly on the rest of the income, as Senator Bach mentioned, a substantial tax reduction. And trust me, I do not have nearly enough fingers and toes to count the number of people that I know that have made that move. And I appreciate those who are willing to stand up and say, no, we shouldn't do this. But I must confess that the senior citizens in my district would beg to differ. Not all of them, of course, but the vast majority. And I'm really tired of losing the talent and the quality of the retirees that we have, because it isn't just their money we're concerned about. It's the other contributions they make to our community in advising our younger people, if they were successful business people, if they had a strong career, but the advice they give to our locals, the volunteer base that they provide, and quite frankly, I'm tired of losing that asset from my district. So with that, Madam Chair, I would turn it back to you. You have made the motion, but if there are any final comments, otherwise I'm ready to lay this bill over.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a few final comments. It has been a good discussion today. This is one of the hallmarks of our representative government, is that people's voices are heard on this issue. And I have listened to all of the comments and continue to listen to all of those comments from Minnesotans who are not here today with their voices, but who have taken to emails and phone calls throughout the years to support really this ending of double taxation. And so just briefly to I won't even summarize. I think there's only one piece that has not been stated that I think is important, and that has to do with adequacy. One of the hallmarks of good tax policy, and you'll read it on our agendas, is adequacy. And members, adequacy, we have adequacy for paying our necessary expenses in the state of Minnesota. In fact, we have over $7.7 billion surplus. And I want to draw attention to the fact that while this total elimination of Social Security taxation of those benefits sounds like it costs a lot, it is a small percent of the $7.7 billion surplus that we have. So do not lose sight of that. And we must not lose sight of the fact of the revenue that is lost because we tax people's retirement income on their Social Security. And members, I don't know if you have the note on this, but I would encourage you to look at those remaining 13 states, that minority of states that Minnesota belongs to. We consistently are a tax island. We have to cease being such an outlier. But of those 13 states, members, that still double tax Social Security benefits, 12 of them have higher exemption levels than Minnesota. So basically, we're kind of at the bottom of the pack, folks, when it comes to how we treat our seniors. And we want them to stay in our state. They have contributed greatly to this state and the development of this state and their communities. And it's shameful that we shoot them out the door because we continue to tax the benefits for which they already paid tax. So with that, I would like to renew my motion, Mr. Chair.
Senator Bach.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Nelson, you prompted me to look at the list again. I find it interesting that probably the two highest tax states in the country for progressive income tax are California and New York, and they don't tax Social Security. Even the highest tax states, highest progressive tax states on income, have realized that it's not good public policy to tax it.
With that, I see no other hands. The chair will lay Senate File 2637 over for possible inclusion into the omnibus bill. Next, we will go to Senate File 2639 as Senator Nelson makes her way back up here. Senator Howe, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. As much as I support the full subtraction of tax on income, on Social Security income, what this bill does is takes the full subtraction of taxable Social Security benefits for veterans and, more importantly, their surviving spouses. And so this bill takes a slice approach to that, and what I'd like to do is just turn it over, because I know we're running long. We'll shorten this up a little bit, and I'll go right to my testifiers if that's okay, Madam Chair, and go to Mr. Yezquez from the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs.
Thank you, Senator Howe. Felipe, Mr. Elicas, I'm going to ask you to pronounce your last name for me. Welcome to the committee, and introduce yourself for the record, please.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Felipe Yescas. I'm the Senior Legislative Director for the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs. I'm also going to keep it short so that we can keep moving. First of all, I just want to be clear that we're very, very grateful to Senator Howe for bringing this up to the committee, and for Chair Nelson for being a co-author of the bill, getting the hearing, and also for her leadership on this issue. I've had numerous conversations with veterans, Latino and non-Latino veterans, and Social Security taxation is something that has come up in every single conversation. And this is why we're working with Senator Howe on this bill. We believe that our veterans have already done a great service to the country, to the state, and why are we and why are we taxing their Social Security? And this is something that came up in many conversations, including the Mexican-American veterans Post 5 in West St. Paul. When I asked them, what's your number one issue that you would like the council to work on? And they said, well, why do we keep paying taxes on our Social Security? We rely on that. And that's why we're here today. So without any further delays, I just want to say that on behalf of the council and the approximately 6,500 Latino veterans in the state, we're in full support of this bill.
Thank you. Mr. Iskas, I want to just commend you for listening to your constituents. As a fellow member of the Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs, I greatly appreciate the fact that you are bringing forth bills this year that impact the Latino community and the community Minnesota at large. So thank you for your advocacy.
Of course, thank you, Madam Chair.
Next, we have Commander John Flores. Welcome to the committee, Commander. Thank you for being here today. We can always count on our veterans to show up, even in severe weather, even in hardship. Commander, introduce yourself for the record, please.
Good morning. I'm Commander John Flores, Commander of AMVETS Minnesota, kind of like the little brother to the VFW, and as you know, we're one of the state's VSOs. I want to thank Senator Howe and Senator Nelson and the committee for having me. I support things and legislation, and we are in the mix of a lot of that in our Commander's Task Force. Worried about disabled veterans especially. And anything that we can do to improve their quality of life is important to us. During this pandemic, I've had so many calls and opportunities to serve our veterans, and most of their issues surround income and health care. And when I read this, I thought that was a good way to help them directly with their income issues. And I've listened to the conversation about people moving out of state, and some of our veterans are making that choice because because of their physical condition from service. They're going to states that don't have income taxes or other tax favorable issues. And so I too want to keep our veterans here in Minnesota, but it is more difficult for a disabled veteran, and of which I am one, and retired, I think. Retired and working 3 jobs. And most of them involve veterans. And so I'm very pleased that this comes up, this bill, and I hope that you'll support it. Our veterans need every little incremental help that you can provide them. They don't have an opportunity to increase their income at their stage, and this would be helpful for them.
Thank you, Commander. Our veterans indeed never have held back for us, always willing to sacrifice all for us. So thank you for those comments. And I believe next on my list, I have Mary Jo George. I'm not sure, Ms. George, had you intended to testify for or against this bill?
No, Madam Chair, we provided overall testimony on our position. Thank you.
Senator Howe, I do not see any other testifiers. We'll open it up if committee members have any comments. Seeing none, Senator Howe, do you have any final comments?
And thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, I firmly believe that we need to do when I came in 10 years ago to the legislature, and the first surplus I seen, they said it was a one-time surplus. Well, folks, I've heard that for 10 years, that a lot of the money, a lot of the surplus we have is one-time surplus. After the decade of surpluses, I think we can afford to take some cuts. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Howe. Senate File 2639 is laid over. Next on our agenda is Senator Senjem with Senate File 2805, Social Security Benefits Phased In, Full Subtraction Permission. Senator Senjem, welcome to the committee. I believe you might have an amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I do have I believe, an A1 amendment.
While you're getting that, if I could have Senator Klein, would you like to move Senate File 2805?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Right, and you have an author's amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair, I have an A1 amendment. I cannot offer it.
Let's see if members have that. Senator Bach, can you move that amendment, please?
I'll move the A1 amendment to get the bill in the shape the author would like it.
This is a technical amendment. We'll add that as an
Madam Chair,
author's
it simply
amendment.
relates to the enactment date, so.
Okay. Senator Senjem, to your bill as amended with the technical author's amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. It's good to be here this morning. Good to be back in Tax Committee. I just, a lot's been said this morning. I don't need to repeat it. But I think most of us know that carry a Senate torch, if you will, and perhaps a House torch as well, that as the December forecast came out, the elimination of the tax on Social Security was a first and foremost, I think, reaction from the public that we got. And I would say that, at least in my case, that was pretty bipartisan in terms of those kind of inputs on this particular tax. And so as I think about it, and by the way, Madam Chair, the 2805 is simply a bill that I believe I carried in this body from 2013, 14, 15, and maybe 16. I relented then to Senator Goggins carrying the Social Security bills, but it is the Iowa bill. It is an Iowa bill that I, if you will, captured off the Iowa legislative site as I got involved in thinking about this at that point. But just going back, I want to just reflect a little bit on some of the comments here. It is not the super wealthy people that move. I will also say, and I'm reflecting back on a conversation at the Rochester Eagles Club a couple of years ago, and these two individuals that I knew through my work at Mayo, they had support jobs at Mayo. They certainly weren't wealthy, moderate income people. They had come to the point of retiring. They were good volunteers on the Eagle Cancer Telethon, but they were going to Arkansas solely based on the Social Security tax. Another point along the way is that we had this bill before this committee a couple of years ago is an individual from Houston County. He didn't want to move away from his family. As Senator Weber pointed out, he just wanted to get across the border, not have to pay this tax, but in terms of his life, it was going to be pretty routine in terms of his family relationships. He didn't have to give up a lot, and of course, he didn't have to pay Social Security tax either. So, Madam Chair and members, real quickly, this bill simply increases the maximum subtractions a little bit, but thinking about how you get this done, and this, of course, in my minority years, we had to think this way, but I don't necessarily think it's still a bad idea, as we've heard the testimony today, that this provides a path, if you will, that's incremental. Over the course of 7 years, the tax is eliminated. It would be all gone, if you will, in 2028 with this method. It allows the legislature to contemplate these reductions or shifts in expenditures from the standpoint of how we deal with the issues before us. It's simply more, I think, well, it is more incremental. It's perhaps, I won't say a more thoughtful approach, but it's certainly a more manageable approach than taking the entire Social Security amount that we would not collect and doing it all at one time. So that's the essence of the bill. Again, it's one that is patterned after the state of Iowa. They, by the way, do not tax Social Security anymore. They use this, it's a 7-year cycle, and they got rid of it in 2015. So that's the bill. Thank you, Madam Chair, and members. Stand for any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Senator Senjem. Members, first, let's adopt that author's amendment, or that technical author's amendment. I don't know that I gave you all a chance. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so the A1 has been adopted. And now to the bill, members, any further comments? Seeing none, Senator Senjem, any other closing comments?
No, Madam Chair and members, thank you for hearing the bill. I think as Senator Bach pointed out, there is a lot of pressure. And we all know that because we get the contacts. There's a lot of pressure to take care of this thing this year one way or another. Again, this is certainly a path forward. It's more incremental. As we get into conference with the House, it may be a path that I not maybe personally want to take, but it's certainly a path that we could take and get this done. That's the important thing, getting this done. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Senjem. Senate File 2805 as amended is laid over. Members, next on our agenda, we have one of our members, Senator Rest, Senate File 3135. Senator Rest, if you could.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is one time when going last is really preferable because it gives me an opportunity to comment on statements that have been made by others throughout this discussion, which I have found very, very valuable. Someone made the comment about we need consistency in our tax system. Well, if we were actually going to be consistent in many ways, we would continue to conform to the federal law on Social Security, paying taxes on benefits, which excludes the first 15%. But Minnesota has, at least in the last 4 years, 2017, 2019, they were my bills that the majority party accepted, and the majority party in both bodies accepted, and we started giving relief on Social Security income. We need to, I think, reassert just at what point were taxes already paid on this income, and of course we pay it out of our checks, those of us who are subject to it, and we look at how who else is paying into the Social Security system on our behalf, and of course it is indeed our employers. I happen to be in a category where I pay both my portion and my employer's portion, so I see every month, every single month, how much tax paid by my employer that contributes later on to the benefits that I received are not taxed to me, and it is more than half. I do believe that when we're going forward, and I kind of think of the bill that I'm bringing to you today as kind of the Goldilocks version, not too much, not too little, but at this point just right. And what makes me think that? Well, this surplus that we have this year, and I agree that it is a sustainable surplus, at least for the planning biennium, for the next biennium, right now. But we haven't seen the March forecast on which we need to base our supplemental budget. Right now, Russia is poised on a major invasion of Ukraine. We are already feeling that in our gas prices. Most of us are paying at least $3.50 for a gallon of gas. And then we're also, as some have also commented on, we are faced with a steep rise in inflation that we have not seen. We have not seen in any number of years. Inflation is an adjustment factor already every single year in the benefits and the Minnesotans and people all over the country, as a matter of fact, that receive SSI, the tax tables are adjusted. So it looked like for 2022, when we were getting Social Security recipients, speaking on their behalf, we're getting a 5.9% increase, a 5.9% increase in their benefits that was going to be a good thing. And maybe you could, buy steak once in a while rather than just hamburger, except, and I apologize for my puppy, except that the inflation rate across the country for goods and services is now at 7%, and it's not likely to go down immediately. Most people in all of the studies that currently are surveys, whatever you want to call them, the economists are saying most of us don't believe this inflation label is going inflation rate is going to last. They see it through the end of 2022, but maybe not 10 years from now, which was very, very different in other times when we were playing, and we've discussed this before with the tax expenditure budget, Madam Chair, that in the 80s, in the 70s, people were paying 16% mortgages on their mortgages, and they bought houses anyway. Right now, the fixed rate is around 3.3%, but it has immediately gone up to 4%. If you are looking to buy a home right now, even though that fixed rate is there, you're not going to get a 3.3% mortgage. You're going to have to pay 4%, which is going to cut the amount that you can pay for a home. And I would say that although I have heard from people that want us to continue giving relief on Social Security income, which my bill does, $78 million fiscal 2023, which would affect this tax year, and then 85 million, 85.7, and in 25, 90.2 million. That's not who I hear from. I hear from the whole panoply of Minnesota taxpayers who say, give it back. Not just to senior citizens, give it back to the people who are paying taxes. And that's not just people who, whether they take early retirement on Social Security at 62, or they've waited until getting the maximum benefit starting at age 70. It is across the board. And I believe that those are the voices that we should also listen to. And as one of the testifiers said, it shouldn't be about your age, it should be about your income. And I believe that that we need to have a program, and I do have a bill that's coming, that will indeed, not 7.7 billion or not even what the March forecast will be showing, but that will recognize the contributions that all Minnesota taxpayers, income taxpayers, have made to this surplus. And although I deeply regret people moving from Minnesota to South Dakota, I know one thing. I bet they come back inside Minnesota and go to the Mall of America to buy their clothes, where they don't pay sales tax on their clothing. And we know that highway is still very, very well traveled. So the program that I am proposing in this bill is very similar to the one that was in my 2017 bill and 2019 bill. And of course, there are all kinds of adjustments in that can be made. It could be made to give less relief. It could be made could be adjusted to give a little bit more. But what it proposes is to subtract, just like some others, a portion of the Social Security income when calculating Minnesota taxable income. Right now, for 2022, that maximum subtraction is 5,450, and as one testifier remarked, in my bill, it doubles that amount. And we calculate a provisional income for Minnesota on Social Security. After we look at the amount that's taxed at the federal income, at the federal tax level. Provisional income is income that we use to calculate the federal taxable portion of Social Security benefits. And the maximum and the thresholds, again, are adjusted annually for inflation. But this year is different. This year, we're not at zero increase in benefits. Like we have been, or within, less than 1% last few years. Those benefits, again, went up 5.9%. But what does that get you? If inflation is 7%, your buying power, and and this is true in other areas, if you work someplace and you got a 6% raise, well, hooray. But if your buying power has been diminished, that's not a particularly happy consequence for us. But it's better, of course, than not getting a raise at all. So the discussion on the fair taxation, if any taxation, we know that the federal government's not going to change its position. We know that in about 15 years that the trust fund itself is predicted to run out of money. I don't think we're going to allow that to happen. But if we do nothing now at the federal level, it looks like that may well be the case. I think that I do think there is an appetite for and a justifiable one for increasing benefits to Social Security so that not so much of it is taxed. I'm uncomfortable, even as much as all of us respect the sacrifices that members of the armed services have made for us, that we should single out one group of taxpayers and somehow say that they are more worthy than other groups that equally contribute to our well-being as Minnesotans. And I also would bring up, although her bill is not on the docket this morning, and then I'll be done, there are people that risk their lives every day, members of law enforcement and public safety that don't get Social Security. They pay into another pension income, and nobody has ever come forward, and we haven't never passed a law having a subtraction from their pensions that aren't taxed. And the maximum amount of Social Security was some benefit because it's capped, regardless of how rich you are, is about 40,000 or something like that. And that's a typical, that can be a typical pension amount for firefighters and police officers as well. And it seems to me if we're going to move forward with giving relief to Social Security recipients across the board, which I would support rather than, again, singling out even a very worthy group, we need to be looking at other employees as well that are not subject to that. And that includes some teachers who were prior to 1969 did not pay Social Security. So I do appreciate the wide-ranging discussion, the various viewpoints about what is the fair, what is the justifiable what is the needed contribution from Social Security recipients. And again, I refer back to that one lady who said, it shouldn't be about my age, it should be about my income. I do hope we're able to improve the Social Security reductions in this session. I do hope the March forecast is going to show us that the surplus is sustainable and not threatened. But otherwise, I think we should be cautious and pay attention across the board to Minnesota citizens, Minnesota residents that have a justifiable call for priority for using some of our resources and using some of the money on that we've gotten from the so-called surplus this year. My bill would affect almost 300,000 tax returns, and if you look at the revenue estimate, you can see that the average would be about 264, and it would be ongoing. I think it's something we should return to every 2 years to make sure that it is sustainable, never reduced, always attempting to increase it. And Madam Chair, I am very grateful that you have brought this discussion before us. I'm very empathetic to the views that you have expressed in your bill, and others, including Senator Senjem's, what she's done before. But I would urge just a bit of caution, and I believe that that my bill recognizes the need and acknowledges that, indicates how much we value our senior citizens, and certainly makes them a priority this time. So I thank you for letting me speak beyond my bill, but I had refrained myself, Madam Chair, from commenting on the other bills and just talking about the one I have forward. So I do hope we are able to make some improvements, and certainly we'll support doing that against any arguments to the contrary, including those that might come from the Minnesota House. They need to see the light. Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me speak.
Thank you, Senator Rest, particularly that last comment. We want to telegraph that right over to the House. Let them hear this and get on board with some tax relief for our seniors. I see a hand, Senator Klein.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Rest, and thank you for this spectrum of proposals today, which really has given us a range of options and a range of discussion points, all the way from a complete and immediate elimination of the Social Security tax to Senator Rest's bill, which I think is quite reasonable, that would target Social Security recipients who earn less than $100K a year. The principle of consistency was brought up, and I think other principles that guide us on the tax committee should be fairness and balance. And again, this bill, the bills that sort of were seen today that proposed a complete elimination of Social Security tax would confer a benefit of about $1 billion per biennium on seniors who earn above $50,000 a year. If I was a young worker, if I was a recent college grad, a new homeowner, single mother with children, that type of expenditure on that category of taxpayers might not seem entirely fair and balanced to me. I can speak to my own situation. It sneaks up on you, but 8 years from now, I will be eligible for Social Security. Good Lord willing, I'll still be working full-time as a physician at that time. The state of Minnesota would be ill-advised to grant me this tax benefit in 8 years on monies that they could invest in health care, in childcare, in transportation, in public care facilities and parks. I was especially impressed by the testimony from the American Association for Retired Persons that proposed a tax exemption on Social Security for middle-income retirees. That certainly sounds like something that could be perceived as fair and balanced. Senator Eakin, we heard about a border state concern that people emigrate quickly when they are faced with this tax if they're on a border district. Senator Eakin acknowledged that and actually last year proposed that we eliminate Social Security taxes altogether, and then he paid for it with a 3% tax on capital gains above $250,000 a year on our most wealthy citizens. It was fully paid for by people who make a great deal on their investments at retirement. That also seemed fair and balanced to me, and actually to every single Democrat in the state Senate who voted for that proposal. So I am grateful for Senator Rest's proposal. I do think we should consider fairness and balance in these ideas and perhaps consider something less than an abrupt and complete elimination of the Social Security tax altogether. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Klein. Any further comments? I would just make one before we adjourn, and that is the principle of adequacy. And I believe that our current resources, along with the $7.7 billion surplus and the over $65 billion that the federal government has sent to the state of Minnesota in COVID relief related dollars, means that we have adequate resources to do those necessary things that were so well illustrated here today. So we are in this unique situation of adequacy. We have resources over adequacy. So I believe we can consider things that in other situations where we did not have such an adequacy would be problematic. Members, with that, you will note that our next hearing is Thursday, February 24th. Senate Tax Committee is adjourned. Oh, excuse me, I think I may have forgotten to lay over Senator Rest's bill. Senate File 3135 is laid over. We are now adjourned.